Installing the inner seal. I start out with a 60,000 shim on each side because you have to have in play before you can, so you can measure it. If you put it together and it's tight, you have no idea where you are. For setup purposes, I just put a little WD-40 on the bearing to keep it lubricated and being handled so it doesn't get moisture on it and rust or something. After you get all the 4 bolts started, then you can draw them in evenly. I don't use any lock washers until my final, till the end when I'm tightening everything up. It just keeps from the lock washers gouging in, and you don't need a lock washer yet, so I just run them in and pull everything up tight. You have to do that on both sides because this is actually one unit once it's installed. You can't set in play until both axles are in. Once both axles are in and tightened up, just give it a smack each in like that. That seats the bearing cup square to the retaining plate. Do that on each end. Now we can check our end play. I have the indicator set up. You zero your indicator, you push the axle one way, and then you move it the other way. So I've got about 55 thousandths in play. 55, 56. Let's zero it a little bit. About 56 thousandths in play. We need to get it down between 1 and 6. So since I put in about a 60 thousandth shim on each side, we'll start by removing the shim on this side. It doesn't matter which side. The factory put them all on one side, but it doesn't really matter. So we obviously have to remove the axle to do that. So here we go. Okay, the shim that was in there is interesting. Is about 56 thousandths. So if I take it out, I've got kind of zero in play. So I think I'll add in a 3,000 shim. I have shims in 3, 5s, 10s, 20s, and 30s, I believe, and this 56. So you can get about any combination you want. So we'll put a 3,000 shim back in and see what happens. Remember, every time you take the axles out, if it's a posi traction rear end, you got to make sure that your thrust blocks that are in here haven't fallen in the axle tube. So look in there with a light, make sure the thrust blocks are in there before you put the axle back in. So here you go. This is the drum aligning ring. They won't make these axles big enough here on this nose to line up with the majority of the Studebaker brake drum. So we put this aligning ring on. If you have disc brakes, if you're putting on disc brakes, make sure you tell me, and we'll give you an aligning ring for disc brake rotors. This is for a drum brake. This is the drum aligning ring. It lines your drum up, of course, with the axle. Mosier will not make these axles big enough on this nose, so we have to put this little lining ring on to line the drum. Now, if you have disc brakes or are using disc brakes, you'll want to tell me or remove this one, and we have one for disc brake rotor alignment also. Not as critical on rotors, but some people prefer it, so we can provide that.